Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah al-Kareem. Welcome back to episode 4 of Life's Adornments, where we discuss the virtues, the responsibilities, the difficulties, and the ins and outs of child rearing. Alhamdulillah, I'm your host, Yusuf Kroma. We know that it is a great beauty, is a great excitement that parents have when it comes to raising children or wanting children. However, they do come with great responsibilities, and it is a great effort that must be placed into the uprearing of children. So today, alhamdulillah, we have our honored guest, Sheikh Assim Al Hakeem, who's a teacher at Zad Academy and a teacher at KIU. Alhamdulillah, he has joined us here today all the way from Saudi to grant us his immense knowledge and his wisdom. Barakallahu feek, Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And it's an honor for me to be here.
Alhamdulillah, it's our pleasure. There's a statement that says, all good things begin with Bismillah. So at the onslaught of a person with the niyyah to conceive a child, what should a man say upon entering his wife with the intention of intimacy?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa ihtada bihudahu. Amma ba'd. It goes without saying that Islam governs every aspect of our lives. And it covers it in a way that leaves little room for maneuvering. And this is part of being slaves and servants of Allah Azza wa Jal. Islam is submission. And you cannot submit your will to Allah the Almighty if you keep on asking why, or what is the reason, or the justification and the logic. This is not submission. This is someone talking and objecting to a peer of his. In Islam, it's totally different. And this is why, by the way, that the Jews objected to Salman al-Farisi, may Allah be pleased with him.
Amen.
And in a form or in a way of ridiculing Islam, they said to him, your messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, taught you everything, even, forgive my French, how to take a crap. And Salman was not offended, rather, he was honored. And he said, yes, the Prophet told us, alayhi sallam, not to face or to give our backs to the Qibla, this is the Kaaba, the direction of prayer, when defecating or urinating, and not to hold our private parts with our right hand, and not to cleanse ourselves from impurities with our right hands, and to use stones when needed, not less than 3 times. All of this means that the companions acknowledge the fact that every single thing they do must be in accordance to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. When thinking of the future and of conceiving children, it's not something isolated. It is still in the same pipeline, which it means that whenever a person is interested in having intimacy, which is why he got married in the first place, it's not something that you do and leave. There's a process and procedure, and there's a way of doing it. And the Prophet highlighted this, alayhi salatu wasalam, by showing us the process and by telling us about the outcome. So he said, when one of you wants to have intimacy with his wife, and he says, Bismillah, Allahumma jannibna shaitan, wa jannib shaitan ma razaqtana, then in this case, Satan would never harm this child that resulted from such intimacy or intercourse. What is the dua? Bismillah, in the name of Allah. And Bismillah is something we say in the beginning of almost everything we do. So when I want to write something, I write Bismillah, which means in the name of Allah, in the name of God, I write. When I want to eat, I say Bismillah, which means in the name of Allah, I eat. So everything of value, we begin it with Bismillah. So you say Bismillah. Allahumma jannibna shaitan. O God, O Allah, protect us from Satan. وَجَنِّبِ الشَّيْطَانَ مَا رَزَقْتَنَا. And make Satan avoid what you have blessed us with, meaning your spouse. So the Prophet says, if you say this dua before you start intercourse, what does this do? If you were granted a child due to this, it will be protected and shaitan will never harm that child. What does that mean, Sheikh? Does it mean that he will never commit a sin? Does it mean that he will never have whispers of shaitan and doubts like everybody else? No. Scholars all agree that this is not what was meant. What was meant was that either this individual child will be among the righteous. So shaitan will not make him among the deviant. Or that he will be protected from disbelief and kufr. So shaitan would not control him and make him a disbeliever. Or that shaitan will not have the ability to possess that child. And in Arabic, we call it sara', which is seizures. And these seizures can be caused by an imbalance of electric waves in the brain. And this is a medical thing. And it can be caused by possession of the devil, the jinn. Either way, with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, and after that, with the saying this dua before intercourse, this protects your child if a child would result from it, inshallah.
Okay, so this begs the question then, for the individuals who are not muta'allim, like who have not studied, who don't understand the ins and outs of fiqh, or even the basics of what should be done in these situations. Does that mean then that a person should refrain from getting married until they understand the fiqh of marriage, the fiqh of divorce, the fiqh of what to do with child tarbiyah? So how do we approach this? I know many just get married and they, without any knowledge of the mawdu'. So
this is like saying there are a number of etiquettes before eating and after eating.
Yes.
So if I don't know these etiquettes, should I refrain from eating and starve to death? No.
But isn't marriage ibadah?
It is ibadah, and so is eating. So if I'm going to eat but I don't know how to say Bismillah or Alhamdulillah ta'amini hada wa razaqni, or to eat with the right hand, so should I say, oh listen, I'm gonna fast until
No, of
no.
course not, yeah.
These things are recommended, highly recommended, and not mandatory.
Okay.
So if a person does not say the dua, Bismillah, Allahumma jannibna shaitan wa jannib shaitan ma razaqtana, he doesn't say it, either intentionally or because he doesn't know. This does not impact the validity of the marriage. It does not impact the child. And by the way, a lot of the Muslims don't know or say this dua. So do we condemn their children to be deviant or evil? No. There are so many other ways in the Sunnah that would ensure or at least provide the child with such a protection from shaitan bi'idhnillah.
Excellent. And there's also a dua that was mentioned by the wife of Imran for Maryam that we have in our tradition. Is this something what was the dua firstly? And secondly, is this something that we also say as well?
So these du'as that are mentioned in the Quran, for example, what Maryam's mother said, وَإِنِّي أُعِيذُهَا بِكَ وَذُرِّيَّتَهَا مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Oh, I seek refuge in you, Allah, for Maryam and her offspring from the cursed devil. And likewise other dua of other prophets and messengers of Allah Azza wa Jal seeking a righteous offspring. These are mentioned in the Quran. The question would be, are these du'as, because they're mentioned in the Quran, sunnah for us to say or not? Well, we have to look at the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Did he do that? The answer is no. So should we do that or not? It's an issue of dispute. The most authentic opinion is that it is permissible, not an innovation, but at the same time not a sunnah. One would argue and say, Akhi, if it's mentioned in the Quran, shouldn't it be sunnah? I'll give another example. There was a man, and the hadith is reported in Bukhari and elsewhere, who whenever leading the prayer with his companions would all the time recite Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, and another surah. And his companions used to complain, say, listen, either recite Surah Al-Ikhlas alone, chapter 112, or recite a separate surah. But why combine two surahs? He said, listen, either you like what I do or choose someone else to lead. So they went to the Prophet ﷺ and sought his advice. And the Prophet told them to ask him again, why do you recite Surah Al-Ikhlas? So the man replied by saying, because it has a description of Allah and I love it for that. So the Prophet told them to tell him, because of your love, Allah loves you. Now, the 1 million Kuwaiti dinar. Question. Because it's much more higher in exchange rate than the dollar.
Yeah.
Is it sunnah to recite it or not? The scholars differed. Some say yes, because the Prophet ﷺ approved of it. Others say no, because the Prophet had never done it. And the most authentic opinion is that it is not a sunnah, because the Prophet did not do it, ﷺ, but it is permissible because the Prophet ﷺ has approved it. Likewise, this dua, a pregnant woman wants to say, Allahumma inni u'idhu dhurriyati bika min ash-shaytan ar-rajim. I seek refuge in you for my offspring from the cursed devil. Is there any problem in that? No, providing you don't believe it's a sunnah. Because this was said in previous ummahs, which is not our legislation. But saying it as a general dua, there's no problem in doing that, inshallah.
Barakallahu feek, Shaykh. This is a very essential point. That could be an episode within of itself. But inshallah ta'ala, we're going to pause here shortly for a break. And for the viewers, stay tuned for our second portion of Life's Adornments. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our fourth episode of Life's Adornments, to this second segment. Alhamdulillah, now we're going to talk about once a child is born. Alhamdulillah, this is one of the most joyful moments of a person's life, to see their child come into existence by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sometimes we get so carried away that many people forget the actual sunnah. So we would like the Shaykh to advise us on what do we do when a child is born, what did the Prophet ﷺ teach his companions to do, and how do we sort of invite this child into the world upon the kitab and the sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Well, first of all, there are some rituals that are not backed by authentic hadith.
Yes.
And there are many that are authentic. And this is why schools of thought differ in regards to some of the sunan. Those who say that we cannot take anything that is weak and not authentic, reject it. And those who say that, yes, we can take things that are weak or not authentic as long as it's not fabricated, they would accept it and embrace it. Among the first that is quite popular and famous among people is to call the adhan in the ear of a newborn.
Yes.
So there is a hadith, but the vast majority of scholars say that this hadith is not authentic, which states that the Prophet ﷺ gave adhan in the ear of Al-Hasan or Al-Hussein when he was born or when they were born. But the hadith is not authentic. Those who accept it and embrace it say that It is not something to do with halal and haram. It is not something to do with the world of the unseen, heaven and hell. It is in fada'il al-a'mal, in the things that are not mandatory in our deeds of worship to Allah Azza wa Jal. So they accept it. And they justify it and say that when a person dies, we perform the funeral prayer, which has no adhan and no iqamah.
No.
So this adhan is to announce that this newborn is about to die and to be prayed upon the funeral prayer. But this is again not something authentic.
Yeah.
Some people go an extra mile and say, yeah, you give adhan in the right ear of a newborn, and then you give the iqamah in the left ear of a newborn. And this is totally baseless. And while you're at it, might as well pray 2 rak'ahs. You just did adhan and iqamah, pray 2 extra rak'ahs. Who cares? No, this is not from the Sunnah, and the hadith is not authentic. I personally advise people not to do it.
To call the adhan in the ear.
To call the adhan at all. Because as long as it's not backed up by an authentic hadith, then why would I do it? I should not do it, and I should refrain from doing it. The child is born, and I have a child. What's the first thing to do? There is a sunnah that is not very well known to Muslims, which is called at-tahnik. The palate of the mouth, or the ceiling of the mouth from the inside, this is called, I think, the palate?
The palate, yes.
Okay. This area, the sunnah, for the first thing to enter the child's stomach after being born is, as explained in the hadith, the children, whenever they were born, their parents would bring the child fresh to the Prophet ﷺ, who would do the tahnik. And tahnik is to take a very tiny piece of date and chew it up until it's really moist, and take a very little part and put it in the palate of the child's mouth. So it's in the roof of his mouth, in the ceiling of his mouth, so that the first thing he tastes and enters his stomach is this sweet thing. Scholars differed. Some say this is only for the Prophet ﷺ. Others say, no, this should be done for every child through one of the scholars or the righteous people of the community. And the most authentic opinion is the third opinion, which says only the father or the mother should do it, because we cannot seek anyone's blessing other than the Prophet ﷺ. We acknowledge that his saliva sallallahu is a blessing by itself. But I can say to you or to some great grand mufti or major scholar that his saliva is as blessed as anything. No, he's like any Tom, Dick, or Harry. There's no blessing in him at all. This is between him and Allah. The Prophet, on the other hand, ﷺ, is a different story. So the most authentic opinion is that this process should be done by either the father or the mother. What are the benefits? Medically, it's been proven that the lack of glucose in the child's and the newborn's bloodstream causes a lot of deficiency and failure in the respiratory system. So this glucose that you add to the child the moment it's born prevents from changing color into blue of the skin, problems with the respiratory system, and enhances the way of him accepting his mother's milk because of that.
Okay, so what about the placenta? What is to be done with the placenta? Some people keep the placenta, some people say it should be buried. What should be done with this?
There is nothing mentioned in the Quran or in the Sunnah in this regard.
Okay.
So if it is medically proven that it would benefit a person after being born few years down the line to get some stem cells or whatever things that would help him or cure him medically, so preserving it and keeping it is totally permissible. If not, we can't say it's recommended to bury because this was not reported to us. So just throw it in the dustbin without any problem with that, inshallah.
Okay, and we know that when Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to come and ask about certain conditions of a child. What was her way when she would enter upon childbirth?
Yeah, I think we mentioned this, that her approach was whenever given the glad tidings that a woman gave birth to a child, she wouldn't ask whether it's a male or female. Because this is the first thing we ask usually when someone says, your sister gave birth to a child. She says, mashallah, boy or girl? This is what we usually ask. Mother Aisha used to say, is the child well formed? Meaning that, alhamdulillah, there is no disability, there is nothing, defect in him, nothing wrong. They say yes, and she says, may praise be to Allah Azza wa Jal. And then she asks whether it's a boy or a girl.
Okay, now this is the part that a lot of people focus on. They spend a lot of time, which is the tasmiyah. We know from the narration of the Prophet ﷺ that one of his sunnah is to name a child a good name. As in the case, he named Hassan and Hussein, and is mentioned that Ali radiallahu anhu wanted to name them Harb. I'm not sure of the authenticity of this, but this is what I've learned and has read before. So what is the sunnah of naming a child? How would you choose a good name? What are some things that we should avoid? I know, for example, the Prophet ﷺ said that we should not take his kunya, certain names, for example, the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not sure if there's a dispute whether a person can name his son like Kareem or Rahman without putting the Abdul in front of it. What are some ways to navigate this?
Sheikh Yusuf, you've opened the Pandora box.
MashaAllah.
This topic is so huge and vast. I don't know if I'm going to cover it all because I'm too old to remember, but let me give it a shot. First of all, whose responsibility is to give the name? So many times I get phone calls from couples, and the woman says, it's not fair. I had the burden of conceiving this child for 9 months, sleepless nights, the contractions of the labor and the delivery and the postnatal bleeding and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm deprived from naming him? The Islamic answer is, it's the man's, not world, it's a man's choice to name the boy or the girl, because that child would be attributed to him. No one says he is Abdullah, the son of Khadija. No, he's Abdullah, the son of Muhammad, the father. So he will be carrying his name. So he's responsible for choosing the name. This doesn't mean he doesn't consult. On the contrary, it's part of good manners to ask your wife, listen, I'm thinking of naming the boy X, Y, or Z. What do you think is best? If she says H, says, no, this is not part of the options. I'm giving you 3 options to choose from. That would be fun. That would be nice. If he's an easygoing person and she chooses a good name, there's nothing wrong in accepting that. It would not insult you or tarnish your reputation as a man to ask your wife. The Prophet himself ﷺ, used to consult his wives in what to do, as in the Hudaybiyah incident where the Muslims were rejected from entering and going to Mecca for Umrah, and the Prophet ordered them to shave their heads. They were in the state of Ihram, as a muhsar does, and to slaughter their sacrifices, and they did not comply. So he's angry. He went back to Salama, and he said, look at your people, they're disobeying me. I'm telling them to shave, and none of them is complying. She said, oh Prophet of Allah, they're depressed. Don't be angered with their action. Just simply go out and ask the barber to shave your head. And look what they do. So the Prophet did that, ﷺ, and they immediately complied. So he consulted his wife. So you're not more man than he was, ﷺ. You're not even close to that. So there's no problem in asking her, I'm picking up this name, so what do you think of it? So this is one aspect of responsibility. It's the man's choice. Now, what type of names? What names are prohibited? When is the naming ceremony done? This requires a lot of talking. I don't know if we have enough time.
Yeah. Actually, what we're going to do is going to pick this up on the next episode because it's something that should be given a good amount of time. Because I even have another question about naming the children after Malaika and a whole bunch of other things that comes with this. So inshallah ta'ala, thank you for your time and your wisdom and your knowledge. Viewers, please stay tuned for our next episode and look out for the topic of the tasmiyah, the naming of the child. Until next time, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.